A child? Solve this or leave. Gregory Sinclair's voice cut through the hum of the penthouse boardroom, a sharp edge of disbelief and amusement as he glanced at Lily Harper, who stood no taller than the conference table, her small frame dwarfed by the polished mahogany and the towering floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the sprawling city below. The sunlight streamed in, glinting off crystal chandeliers and casting fractured rainbows across the marble floor, and the scent of leather chairs and expensive cologne mingled in the air, a constant reminder of the wealth and power concentrated in this room. Lily's mother, Janet, lingered by the corner, her hands steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of worry, silently urging her daughter to remember the lessons of patience and observation she had learned in their quiet apartment, far from this world of glass and gold. The room was still, the air thick with anticipation as investors and executives leaned forward, their expressions a blend of curiosity and scorn, certain that the challenge presented to a 10-year-old could not be met. Lily's gaze swept across the intricate network of screens displaying simulations, charts, and figures, each number a potential pitfall, each discrepancy a chance to prove herself. Her fingers twitched, almost imperceptibly, as she absorbed every detail, her mind racing through calculations and patterns she had memorized while helping her mother balance household budgets, learning strategy in whispers and scribbles on scraps of paper after long days of chores and schoolwork. The murmurs of disbelief among the adults grew, the smirks, the whispered bets, all of it bouncing off the walls lined with abstract art and floor-to-ceiling mirrors that reflected their own arrogance back at them. Lily drew a slow breath, feeling the weight of expectation and the sting of mockery pressing on her small shoulders, yet a quiet determination sparked within her, a fire fanned by every dismissive glance, every chuckle from men in tailored suits who thought they had already won. She took a tentative step closer to the console, the polished floor echoing softly under her shoes, and with a glance at her mother, who nodded almost imperceptibly, she reminded herself of the advice whispered during late nights by candlelight. See the patterns they miss. Speak only when your answer is certain. And in that moment, with the sun catching the strands of her blonde hair and highlighting the intensity in her blue eyes, Lily Harper became more than a child in a boardroom. She became the quiet storm, the unseen force ready to upend the assumptions of every adult who had underestimated her. And the room held its collective breath, waiting for the first word, the first move, the beginning of a reversal none could have predicted. The sunlight shifted across the floor-to-ceiling windows as Lily Harper crouched slightly over the touchscreen, her small hands tracing invisible lines through a maze of charts and algorithms that had confounded even the most seasoned analysts in the room. Every detail mattered, from a misplaced decimal to the misaligned column, and she absorbed them all with the patience and precision learned from long nights watching her mother balance household accounts and read financial ledgers under the dim glow of a kitchen lamp. The scent of polished wood and leather chairs mixed with the faint aroma of coffee that had been poured hours ago, creating a backdrop that contrasted sharply with Lily's quiet determination, her gaze unwavering despite the whispering and occasional smirks of the men in tailored suits who had underestimated her before she even touched the console. Janet Harper stood near the back, her posture controlled, lips pressed together in a careful line, a silent anchor of support and reassurance, a reminder of the lessons whispered in moments between chores and bedtime stories. Notice the patterns, trust your observations, speak only when your solution is certain. The screens flickered with simulated projections, graphs stretching across multiple monitors, lines representing millions of dollars, market fluctuations, and investment risks. Yet Lily navigated them effortlessly, her mind piecing together the inconsistencies others had ignored, the subtle clues hidden in plain sight. Gregory Sinclair leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed, exuding a confidence born from decades of success. Yet a flicker of doubt crossed his face as he noticed her focus, her unwavering intensity, a calm in the storm that refused to be intimidated. Every person in the room sensed the tension, the electricity of potential revelation, their eyes darting between the child and the intricate data that had stalled seasoned professionals for hours. Lily inhaled deeply, her small chest rising steadily, and began to trace the sequence of errors, mentally highlighting the connections and miscalculations with the skill of someone far beyond her years, a quiet genius honed in the shadows, unseen, yet profoundly capable. The chandeliers above cast shifting patterns on the polished marble, their reflections dancing across the glass surfaces of the monitors, echoing the tension in the room. Every flicker of light accentuating the contrast between the imposing wealth surrounding her and the clarity of insight emanating from her youthful mind. She pressed a finger gently against a critical point in the simulation, a soft tap that resonated in the silence, and her lips moved in a barely audible murmur, not to be overheard but as a grounding mantra. Observe, understand, act. Janet's eyes met hers briefly, a subtle nod of affirmation passing between mother and daughter, a shared understanding of the significance of this moment, the delicate balance of courage and precision. Around them, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, the clinking of a coffee cup or the faint scratch of a pen suddenly magnified. Yet Lily remained centered, her focus absolute, every calculation precise, every observation critical, preparing herself for the moment when insight would translate into action, a reversal no one could anticipate, but that she had already meticulously prepared for in the quiet, relentless hours that had built her unshakable confidence and skill. The screens before Lily Harper glowed softly, illuminating her determined face as she traced the final errors in the complex simulation, the lines of data converging into a clear pattern that had eluded the adults in the room for hours. The polished marble beneath her shoes reflected the muted light from the chandeliers, the subtle shifting of reflections emphasizing the silent anticipation that had settled over every executive and investor, their eyes darting between the child and the glowing screens, the scent of expensive coffee and leather-bound chairs blending into a haze that made the space feel both opulent and charged with expectation. Her mother, Janet, lingered quietly near the edge of the room, her hands clasped together, a measured presence that anchored Lily as she prepared to act, the lessons whispered in quiet moments at home, the value of patience, the power of observation, the importance of precision, guiding her every move. The room itself seemed to pulse with tension, the collective breath of the attendees caught as they watched a child navigate what they had deemed impossible, their expressions a mix of disbelief, curiosity, and the faintest hint of admiration that they could not yet acknowledge openly. Lily's eyes moved across the graphs, the projections, and the cascading numbers, each one a clue, each one a challenge to her ability and focus, and she absorbed them with the quiet intensity of someone who had learned to see what others missed, who had spent countless hours honing her mind in the shadows, unseen but prepared. The murmurs of disbelief and subtle whispers faded into a heavy silence, the kind that fills a room just before something extraordinary occurs. And in that suspended moment, Lily lifted her small hand and pointed at the key discrepancy, her voice steady and clear as she began to explain the correction, the words precise and confident, carrying across the room with a weight that belied her age. The error is here, in the sequence of these projections, and the solution requires adjusting this parameter and this variable simultaneously to achieve the correct outcome. Heads turned, eyes widened, and a low murmur of astonishment rippled through the room as every person present realized that the child had not only identified the flaw, but had formulated a solution that surpassed the efforts of their entire team. Gregory Sinclair's confident posture faltered, his arms uncrossing slowly as he leaned forward, disbelief etched across his features, while the investors and colleagues who had mocked her mere moments before exchanged glances that carried a newfound respect, their previous assumptions collapsing under the clarity of Lily's insight. The glow of the monitors reflected in her determined eyes as she continued to speak, guiding the correction step by step, each explanation concise, yet comprehensive, demonstrating not only knowledge but poise and authority beyond her years. The contrast between the small, poised figure of Lily Harper and the vast, opulent boardroom filled with experienced adults created a scene of quiet drama, an unexpected reversal of roles where intellect and preparation outweighed hierarchy and wealth. And as the last adjustment was made and the simulation resolved perfectly, a collective sense of awe settled over the room, leaving everyone, from the highest-ranking executive to the junior analyst, realizing that they had witnessed a remarkable moment of skill, courage, and composure that could only have come from someone who had mastered the art of observation, analysis, and quiet confidence. And in that charged atmosphere, Lily Harper stood tall, poised to deliver the full impact of her revelation. The room held a tense, electric silence as Lily Harper straightened, her small hands resting lightly on the console while every eye in the boardroom followed her, captivated by the unexpected authority in her voice and the precision of her insight. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the strands of her blonde hair, casting a halo-like glow around her focused expression, and the chandeliers above reflected tiny prisms of light across the polished marble floor, creating a shimmering backdrop to the quiet storm she had just unleashed. Gregory Sinclair leaned back, his confident demeanor faltering as he processed the flawless resolution displayed across the screens. The correction Lily had suggested working seamlessly, erasing errors that had stumped the team for hours, and for the first time in years, he felt the rare sensation of being outmatched, humbled by a mind so young and unassuming. The investors shifted uneasily, murmurs passing quietly between them, their earlier skepticism replaced with awe and disbelief, the whisper of admiration threading through the hum of electronic devices and the faint click of a distant elevator. Janet Harper, standing a few paces behind her daughter, allowed herself a breath she had been holding, her eyes soft with pride and relief, the countless nights of guidance, patience, and encouragement now bearing visible fruit as her daughter navigated a world so far removed from their modest home with grace and clarity. Lily's gaze swept across the room, noticing the subtle changes in posture, the quickened glances of the executives, and the flicker of uncertainty that passed across Gregory's face, and she realized in that instant that respect could be commanded not by age or wealth, but by competence and calm, by observing closely, thinking critically, and acting decisively. Every number, every variable, every cascading line of data had become an instrument through which she could demonstrate her understanding, turning what had been a test into a performance of intellect and poise, the kind that left the audience suspended between admiration and astonishment. The soft hum of the air conditioning, the faint ticking of a clock on the wall, and the distant city sounds filtering through the massive windows all faded into the background as the room focused solely on her, the small figure who had quietly claimed the attention and respect of all present. Even as she began to explain the next steps for optimizing the simulation, her voice steady and deliberate, there was a sense that the ordinary rules of hierarchy had shifted, that the child who had once been overlooked now held a quiet dominion over the room through the clarity and certainty of her mind. And the subtle change in atmosphere was palpable, a collective recognition that true capability could emerge from the most unexpected of places. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the edge of the table, a gesture of tentative acknowledgement, as the room began to settle into a new rhythm, where attention and respect were earned in real time by the demonstration of skill, insight, and courage, and Lily Harper, poised and unwavering, had just redefined the possibilities of what a single, determined individual could accomplish in a world built on assumptions, leaving everyone present with a lingering anticipation of what she might reveal next and the full measure of her extraordinary mind. As Lily Harper continued to guide the simulation with precise movements and calm explanations, the room seemed to shrink around her small figure, every executive, every investor, and Gregory Sinclair himself leaning in to catch each word, each adjustment she made. And the contrast between her youthful presence and the opulent, glass and marble environment became even more striking. The soft hum of computers and faint clicking of keyboards filled the background, but it was Lily's steady voice and meticulous focus that dominated, drawing all attention to her skillful handling of data that had stumped professionals for hours. Janet Harper, standing quietly behind her daughter, allowed a subtle smile, a mixture of pride and relief, to cross her face as she witnessed the culmination of all the lessons, patience, and late-night study sessions that had shaped Lily's ability to perceive patterns, solve problems, and act decisively when it mattered most. The sunlight through the windows highlighted the intricate lines of Lily's concentrated expression, catching in her blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes, and the crystal chandeliers reflected fragments of light onto the polished floor, scattering rainbows across the room that seemed to dance with the tension and anticipation, a visual echo of the remarkable reversal of expectations unfolding in the penthouse boardroom. Gregory's posture, once confident and imposing, shifted imperceptibly as he watched a child not only navigate but master the complex simulation, and a subtle acknowledgement passed through his eyes, a recognition that intellect, insight, and courage could emerge from the most unlikely of sources, a realization that humility, respect, and admiration sometimes arrive suddenly and without warning. Around the room, the murmurs of astonishment and whispered acknowledgments grew, the previous smirks and skeptical glances replaced by attentive observation as colleagues absorbed the fact that Lily's intervention had transformed the session from a mere demonstration of numbers into a vivid display of strategy, foresight, and composure. Each correction she applied sending ripples of understanding and respect across the room. Lily's movements were deliberate yet fluid, her fingers dancing across the interface with confidence born of quiet mastery, highlighting errors, proposing fixes, and anticipating consequences in a way that belied her age. And with every explanation, every step, the room's energy shifted from doubt and skepticism to wonder and engagement. A tangible transformation as those who had dismissed her began to grasp the depth of her capability. The air seemed heavier, more vibrant, each sound amplified by the collective focus. And in this charged atmosphere, the boundaries between the experienced adults and the extraordinary child blurred as competence and clarity triumphed over assumptions and hierarchy. Lily paused briefly, allowing her words and actions to sink in. The room suspended in a collective moment of realization, and in that silence, a profound acknowledgement formed. That capability, observation, and courage could command attention, respect, and influence regardless of age or stature. And as the screens glowed with the final adjustments, the room held a quiet, awed stillness, a testament to the unexpected power of preparation, intelligence, and unshakable confidence, leaving every person present to anticipate the full extent of what Lily Harper had just accomplished and what she might reveal next. Gregory Sinclair sat frozen in his leather chair, a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead as he realized the full weight of Lily Harper's insight. The subtle shift in the room undeniable as investors and colleagues exchanged astonished glances, their earlier confidence replaced by a mixture of admiration and disbelief. The sunlight streamed across the penthouse, glinting off the glass surfaces and marble floors, reflecting 1,000 tiny prisms of light that danced over the polished leather, chairs, and crystal chandeliers, creating a visual rhythm that mirrored the tension and revelation unfolding in the room. Lily's small frame stood poised and unwavering, her fingers moving deftly across the console, tracing the final corrections, her eyes scanning each projection with calm precision, each adjustment further affirming her mastery of the simulation that had confounded adults for hours, and every minor shift she executed rippled through the screens like a symphony of clarity and insight. Janet Harper remained in the background, her posture controlled, her lips pressed together in silent pride as she witnessed her daughter navigate the intricate network of data with a confidence that seemed to command the attention of every individual in the room. And she could not help but marvel at how much Lily had grown in both skill and composure. The quiet strength she had cultivated in the shadows now illuminated under the warm light of recognition. The executives, once skeptical, now leaned forward, some unconsciously holding their breath, as Lily explained each calculation, each correction, and the logic behind her decisions, her voice steady and articulate, carrying authority far beyond her 10 years. And in the polished, spacious room filled with wealth and power, she had become the center of gravity, drawing attention and respect with each carefully chosen word. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the edge of the table, a gesture of tentative acknowledgement, his usual confident smirk replaced by a look of stunned recognition as he processed the implications of what had just transpired. Realizing that the child he had underestimated had not only solved a complex problem, but had done so with a calm clarity and insight that eclipsed the efforts of his most experienced team members. The faint hum of computers, the soft click of a distant elevator, and the quiet shifting of chairs were all amplified by the collective focus on Lily. Yet she remained undistracted, her gaze sweeping the room to ensure every correction was understood, every step accounted for, her calm determination contrasting sharply with the previous chaos and doubt that had filled the penthouse moments earlier. The subtle scent of coffee and leather mixed with the ambient sunlight to create a warm, almost cinematic atmosphere, accentuating the contrast between the opulence of the environment and the understated brilliance of the child who had now claimed the room through intellect, observation, and composure, demonstrating a quiet yet undeniable authority that left everyone, from the CEO to the newest analyst, aware that they had witnessed a remarkable reversal of expectations. In this suspended moment, Lily Harper embodied the power of preparation, focus, and courage, and as she allowed her final adjustments to display on the glowing screens, a collective realization settled over the room that competence and insight could command respect and attention even in the most extraordinary environments, leaving Gregory Sinclair and every witness both humbled and captivated by the extraordinary presence of a child whose quiet determination had transformed the dynamic of the entire session. Lily Harper stepped back slightly from the console, allowing her final instructions to settle across the boardroom. The hum of the computers and the faint click of the chandelier crystals punctuating the silence as every executive and investor processed the extraordinary display of insight they had just witnessed. The sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows spilled across the marble floors and leather chairs, illuminating the awe on their faces and highlighting the contrast between their expectation and the reality of the child who had transformed the room with intellect and poise. Janet Harper's eyes glistened with quiet pride, her hands folded calmly in front of her, a silent testament to the years of guidance and patience that had nurtured her daughter's keen observation and analytical skills, and she felt the weight of every moment of learning and encouragement culminating in this singular, defining achievement. Gregory Sinclair leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Lily, a subtle shift in expression betraying his astonishment. The recognition that competence and brilliance had arrived in a form he had never anticipated settling over him, and the room seemed to hold its breath, caught between disbelief and admiration. The polished surfaces and opulent furnishings now forming a backdrop to an unexpected reversal of authority and expectation. The investors whispered softly to one another, glances exchanged in quiet acknowledgement of Lily's mastery, the sheer clarity and foresight of her analysis transforming what had been a challenging simulation into a demonstration of skill that left no doubt about her capability and determination. The subtle patterns she had detected now apparent to all but invisible to those who had dismissed her initially. Lily's blue eyes swept across the room, noticing the subtle shifts in posture, the widened eyes, and the quiet nods of acknowledgement, and she felt a calm satisfaction, a quiet certainty that preparation, focus, and courage could command respect and attention regardless of age or stature. The air felt charged, every sound amplified in the suspended attention of the room. Yet Lily remained centered, her mind calmly tracing the implications of each adjustment and correction, each small movement deliberate, each word precise, demonstrating mastery and composure in a space dominated by wealth and experience. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the edge of the mahogany table, a tentative sign of respect forming as he considered the young girl who had so seamlessly surpassed the expectations of the entire room. And even the subtle movement of a nearby chandelier crystal seemed to mirror the spark of astonishment and recognition passing through the witnesses, capturing the interplay of light, attention, and intellect. The contrast between the child's quiet confidence and the boardroom's opulent seriousness underscored the remarkable nature of the moment, the realization that insight, preparation, and calm determination could shift the dynamics of power and influence lingering in the air. And as Lily straightened fully, poised and unwavering, the room collectively acknowledged that they had just experienced a reversal of expectation, a testament to the power of observation, intelligence, and composure in shaping outcomes that even the most seasoned adults could not foresee. Lily Harper took a slow, deliberate breath, her eyes sweeping the room one last time as the implications of her work settled over the boardroom. The polished marble floors reflecting the sunlight streaming through the expansive windows, and the crystal chandeliers scattering tiny prisms of light that seemed to mirror the awe and disbelief etched across the faces of every executive, investor, and even Gregory Sinclair, whose confident posture had softened into a mix of respect and astonishment. Janet Harper remained in the background, her presence quiet yet grounding, a subtle nod of pride passing between mother and daughter as she watched the culmination of countless hours of guidance, encouragement, and late-night study sessions manifest in a display of composure and intellect that had surpassed all expectations. The room was thick with unspoken acknowledgement, the kind that transforms assumptions and hierarchies into a shared recognition of talent and potential, as Lily's careful navigation of complex simulations and precise analysis had upended the dynamics of authority, demonstrating that clarity, preparation, and calm focus could command attention and respect regardless of age or stature. The subtle hum of the computers and the faint clinking of glasses seemed amplified in the charged silence, each sound punctuating the collective realization that the young girl before them had not only solved an intricate problem, but had done so with a grace and composure that left no doubt of her extraordinary capability. Gregory's eyes met hers, a flicker of humility and admiration crossing his features as he took in the precision of her observations, the logical flow of her explanations, and the confidence with which she guided the final corrections, all performed with a poise that contrasted sharply with the initial skepticism that had filled the room. Investors whispered softly to one another, heads nodding subtly, and colleagues leaned in to witness each step, their earlier doubts replaced by a growing sense of respect and fascination as Lily articulated the reasoning behind every adjustment, every insight a quiet testament to her intellect and diligence. The sunlight continued to illuminate the space, highlighting the intricate textures of the leather chairs, the polished wood, and the sparkling crystal above, yet it was Lily's calm determination and careful mastery that captured the true light, commanding the room through the clarity and authority of her mind. Even the smallest details, from the alignment of numbers on the screens to the precise timing of adjustments, showcased a level of attentiveness that drew the eyes of everyone present, compelling them to acknowledge her ability to see and act upon what others had overlooked. The subtle contrast between her small frame and the grandeur of the boardroom emphasized the remarkable nature of the achievement, a testament to focus, observation, and courage transcending expectations. As she stepped back from the console, allowing the simulation to run its final sequences under her guidance, the room collectively exhaled, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary reversal they had just witnessed, leaving every individual with a lingering awareness that they had observed something rare, a display of intellect and composure that would be remembered and recounted long after the light shifted across the marble floors and the day moved toward its quiet close. Lily Harper leaned closer to the main console, her blue eyes narrowing slightly as she traced the intricate connections between the data streams, every flicker of the screens reflecting the concentrated focus of a mind far beyond her 10 years. The sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated the polished marble and crystal chandeliers, casting fragmented patterns across the room that seemed to dance in time with the tension and anticipation hanging in the air. Gregory Sinclair remained seated, leaning forward just enough to catch every subtle movement, his confident demeanor replaced by a mix of astonishment and newfound respect, while the investors and executives who had once doubted her now observed in quiet awe, their whispers and glances betraying the disbelief that a child could command such clarity and authority in a room dominated by experience and wealth. Janet Harper stood a few steps behind, her posture calm, but her heart swelling with pride as she watched Lily navigate the simulation with precision, each adjustment and observation a testament to years of careful guidance, late-night lessons, and the development of an analytical mind trained in patience and attention to detail. The soft hum of the computers and the faint click of keyboards provided a steady rhythm against the silence of the room, emphasizing the gravity of the moment as Lily spoke with a composed clarity, explaining the underlying patterns and correcting errors that had gone unnoticed by the most seasoned professionals in attendance. Her voice carried with quiet authority, each word deliberate, measured, and filled with a clarity that drew the attention of everyone in the boardroom, making it impossible to look away or underestimate her insight. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the edge of the mahogany table, his usual posture of dominance softened as he absorbed the full scope of her capability, and the room seemed to shift subtly around her, as though acknowledging that hierarchy and wealth held less weight than intellect, observation, and composure. The crystal chandeliers reflected light across the marble floor in delicate patterns, mirroring the subtle shifts of emotion in the room, while Lily's small figure moved with a deliberate grace, confident in her knowledge and the steps she was taking to bring clarity and resolution to a complex, high-stakes simulation that had challenged even the most experienced professionals. The investors leaned in, their expressions shifting from curiosity to recognition of the exceptional skill unfolding before them, and each whisper carried the unspoken acknowledgement that they were witnessing a rare display of talent and poise that demanded respect. Every detail Lily attended to, from minute inconsistencies to the broader structural flow of the simulation, was executed with calm precision, her movements deliberate, her observations insightful, and her explanations clear and authoritative, creating an atmosphere of focused attention that silenced even the faintest skepticism. As she guided the final adjustments, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, each person sensing the significance of the moment, the subtle shift in power and perception that had been quietly orchestrated by the child whose presence alone had transformed a room once dominated by experience, wealth, and assumption into a space where skill, preparation, and courage dictated the outcome. Lily Harper stood quietly for a moment, letting the results of her meticulous adjustments stabilize on the console, the screens glowing softly as each simulation confirmed the accuracy of her analysis, and the room seemed to hold its breath in collective realization. The polished marble reflecting shards of sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows, while the crystal chandeliers scattered glimmers across the leather chairs and mahogany table. Gregory Sinclair leaned forward, eyes wide and lips parted slightly, the usual confidence of decades in the corporate world replaced by a profound astonishment as he processed the precision and depth of her work, the subtle shifts in posture and expression across the room, marking a ripple of disbelief and respect from every executive and investor present. Janet Harper, standing a short distance behind her daughter, exhaled softly, a quiet smile playing at the corners of her lips, pride and relief interwoven as she observed the culmination of years of patient guidance, the whispered lessons, and late-night problem-solving exercises now manifest in this singular display of intellect and composure. The room was silent, the faint hum of computers and the occasional scratch of a pen on paper emphasized by the collective focus, and yet Lily remained centered, her small frame poised, her eyes scanning the screens for any remaining inconsistencies, her calm authority anchoring the attention of the room as each correction she guided brought the simulation closer to perfect resolution. Investors exchanged subtle glances, nodding quietly, recognizing the extraordinary skill and insight they had witnessed, their earlier skepticism replaced by an acknowledgement that age, size, and experience were not the only measures of capability. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the edge of the table, his posture softened, a gesture of respect forming as he absorbed the implications of a child surpassing even the most seasoned professionals in problem-solving, the weight of years in business eclipsed by the clarity and focus of youthful observation. The sunlight illuminated the detailed textures of the marble floors and polished surfaces, highlighting the elegance of the room, yet it was the calm determination and quiet brilliance of Lily that captured the focus, commanding attention and reshaping the hierarchy of influence in that space. The subtle energy of anticipation, astonishment, and realization permeated the air, each sound amplified by the heightened attention, the click of the keyboard, the soft hum of monitors, and the rustle of papers punctuating the scene like markers in a symphony of focus. Lily's voice, steady and clear, guided the room through the final steps of verification, explaining the logic and reasoning behind every adjustment with a precision that captivated and reassured, transforming the collective tension into awe and respect. And in that moment, the boardroom, with all its wealth, authority, and expectation, acknowledged that true capability, clarity of thought, and courage could emerge from the most unexpected of places, leaving Gregory Sinclair and every witness to the extraordinary events with a lasting awareness of the remarkable reversal they had just witnessed and the quiet, undeniable power of preparation, intelligence, and composure. Lily Harper stepped back from the console, her small frame now commanding the full attention of the room as the simulation completed its final sequence flawlessly. The glowing screens reflecting off the polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers, scattering light across the leather chairs and mahogany table, and every executive, investor, and observer leaned forward, their expressions a mixture of astonishment, admiration, and quiet respect, the air thick with the tension and release of anticipation finally realized. Gregory Sinclair, usually composed and commanding, sat with his hands lightly resting on the table, his eyes widened as he processed the complete reversal of expectations, the brilliance of a 10-year-old having guided them through a problem that had challenged seasoned professionals for hours, leaving him momentarily speechless and humbled in the presence of such clarity and poise. Janet Harper allowed herself a quiet, proud smile, recognizing in her daughter the culmination of years of guidance, patience, and careful nurturing of observation, critical thinking, and composure, the soft sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows highlighting the proud expression on her face as she witnessed the full impact of Lily's capabilities. The executives whispered softly, exchanging glances that acknowledged the unexpected depth of skill displayed by the young girl. The previous skepticism now replaced with admiration and recognition, the collective realization settling over the room that competence and intelligence can emerge in forms least anticipated, transcending age, stature, and prior assumptions. Lily's blue eyes swept the room, noting the subtle nods, the shifted postures, and the quiet acknowledgments of respect, the delicate interplay of authority, observation, and intellect becoming vividly apparent. As she remained poised, her every movement precise, deliberate, and calm, guiding the room through the final steps of validation with clarity and assurance. The faint hum of computers, the soft click of keyboards, and the muted clatter of distant objects accentuated the room's focus, amplifying the significance of the moment as every detail Lily attended to, from minute inconsistencies to broader structural flows, was executed with deliberate accuracy and calm insight, commanding the attention and recognition of everyone present. Gregory finally lifted his gaze, a subtle nod passing between him and Lily, a wordless acknowledgement of skill, foresight, and courage displayed in a moment that defied expectation, and the investors and colleagues who had doubted her now leaned in to witness the quiet mastery of a child who had seized control through preparation, intellect, and steady confidence. The light continued to shimmer across the room, the reflections from the chandeliers casting fleeting patterns that mirrored the shifting emotions and newfound respect permeating the space, while Lily remained poised, her composure and clarity of thought radiating through the room, demonstrating the quiet power of observation and precision in shaping outcomes. And as the simulation concluded successfully, the boardroom collectively exhaled, the tension giving way to the realization that they had just witnessed a rare, remarkable moment of insight, capability, and poise that would be remembered long after the sunlight faded from the polished marble and glass. Lily Harper stepped away from the console, her small frame illuminated by the warm sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers reflecting the quiet triumph of the moment. The room had shifted from skepticism to awe, every executive, investor, and colleague fully aware that they had just witnessed a rare display of intelligence, composure, and courage, a moment that transcended age and status. Janet Harper allowed a soft, proud smile, feeling the culmination of years of guidance and late-night lessons manifest in her daughter's calm authority, a quiet acknowledgement that preparation, observation, and determination could yield extraordinary results in a world dominated by wealth and experience. Gregory Sinclair finally rose from his chair, his posture measured yet carrying the weight of acknowledgement, the confident demeanor replaced by a respect earned through the unanticipated brilliance of a child who had not only solved the problem, but had done so with clarity, focus, and poise. The executives and investors whispered, Among themselves, subtle nods passing quietly across the room as the realization settled that talent and insight could emerge in forms least expected, reshaping perceptions of capability and influence. Lily's gaze swept the boardroom, noting the subtle expressions of respect, the quiet admiration, and the unspoken acknowledgement that her meticulous attention to detail and careful analysis had changed the dynamic of the room entirely. The ambient sounds, the hum of computers, the faint click of keyboards, the soft shuffle of papers, created a rhythm that accentuated the intensity of the moment. Yet Lily remained centered, her mind calm, her movements deliberate, and her explanations precise, guiding the room through the final verification of results with authority that commanded attention without the need for any overt assertion of power. Light from the windows and the shimmering reflections from chandeliers highlighted the elegance of the penthouse, yet it was the young girl's quiet confidence and unwavering focus that filled the space with a sense of wonder, her intellect and composure acting as a beacon for all present. Gregory's hands rested lightly on the mahogany table, a subtle gesture of respect, while Janet's presence in the background reinforced the silent strength and guidance that had fostered such a moment, emphasizing that nurturing patience and careful instruction could cultivate exceptional skill. The investors leaned in, captivated, recognizing the significance of what they had observed, the previously skeptical murmurs replaced with recognition of extraordinary ability and poise. As Lily stood fully upright, her calm eyes meeting the gaze of every person in the room, the atmosphere remained charged with the realization that this was more than a demonstration of competence. It was a quiet, profound affirmation that clarity of mind, careful preparation, and courageous execution could command attention and respect in ways that power and privilege alone could never achieve, leaving everyone present with a lasting sense of inspiration and the unmistakable awareness that they had just witnessed a truly remarkable accomplishment. Lily Harper stepped back from the console, the glow from the screens casting a warm light across her face as the room absorbed the full impact of her achievement. Every executive, investor, and Gregory Sinclair himself now quietly acknowledging the extraordinary skill, composure, and intellect that had just transformed the dynamic of the boardroom. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the facets of the crystal chandeliers, scattering soft prisms across the polished marble floors, the gentle reflections highlighting the subtle shift from skepticism to admiration and respect that now permeated the space. Janet Harper's quiet presence in the background radiated pride and relief, a gentle reminder that behind every moment of brilliance lay years of patient guidance, careful instruction, and nurturing of observation, analytical thinking, and calm perseverance, all culminating in the confident execution her daughter had just demonstrated. Gregory finally straightened fully in his chair, his eyes meeting Lily's with a mixture of humility and recognition, a silent acknowledgement that her clarity, preparation, and courage had outshone his assumptions, and the room seemed to settle into a collective appreciation of the profound lesson unfolding before them, that intelligence, determination, and insight could come from the most unexpected sources, and that respect is earned not through age or position but through thoughtful action and composure under pressure. The executives and investors quietly nodded to one another, their prior doubts replaced by acknowledgement of the remarkable display they had witnessed, whispers of admiration threading through the room as they absorbed the subtle mastery of Lily's observations, adjustments, and precise reasoning, each step a demonstration of patience, skill, and courage. The faint hum of the computers, the soft click of a keyboard, and the delicate shuffle of papers provided a rhythmic underscore to the charged atmosphere, emphasizing the significance of the moment as the young girl stood poised, her every gesture deliberate, her focus unwavering, and her intellect commanding attention in a way that transcended the opulence of the penthouse, the polished marble, and the grandeur of the surroundings. Light danced across the room in fractured patterns from the chandeliers, reflecting the awe and admiration now shared among all present, and Lily's calm, confident presence dominated the space, illustrating the profound truth that preparation, courage, and insight can alter expectations and redefine authority in any environment. Gregory's subtle nod, Janet's quiet pride, and the investors' respectful glances all converged in a shared understanding that the events they had just witnessed were a testament to the power of observation, intelligence, and unwavering composure. Leaving the room in a state of quiet reflection, the weight of this realization settling gently over everyone present. A reminder that true ability is measured not by outward appearances or status, but by the clarity of thought, the courage to act, and the steadfast confidence to see possibilities where others see limits. A lesson that would linger long after the sunlight faded from the marble and the glow of the screens dimmed into memory.